All right, ladies. So we're gonna continue intellectual tradition. This is our last class on intellectual traditions. We would have looked at the Afro-Caribbean thought, which is one category. We also looked at the economic and political thought. And so today we're going to look at Caribbean, Caribbean feminism and Indo-Caribbean thought and indigenous perspective. So these are the other three thoughts that we're going to look at. All right. So for today's class, I just want to start off with Caribbean feminism. What do you know about Caribbean feminism? Caribbean feminism, ladies, what do you know about it? Do you think that feminism in the Caribbean has impacted the Caribbean in any way or form? And if such, uh, how? Come, ladies, talk, talk, talk. I'm tired. I can't do all the talking today.
Hello, sir.
Hello. Go ahead, Family Shirley. Thank you very much.
I was going to say that personally, I think that the Caribbean isn't too balanced as it relates to feminism because I think that a lot of pressure is still on women, but we're kind of coming out of that. But I still think that women are still treated unequally in my
Unequally. All right, good. All right, nice way to start off. So when we look at Caribbean feminism or feminism on a whole, feminism is really a construct that would have started in Britain after World War I and continue to and that concept has been exported to other parts of the world. The concept of feminism is that men and women should actually be treated equally. And more feminists are saying it's not just only equally, but there's some form of equity that's supposed to happen between males and females because you can give male and female the same tools, but men are already ahead, so they will continue to be ahead if there's some equality. So you need to provide equity to bring them on the same level as uh, male. Hmm, quite a controversial statement just now. Uh, However, they're saying that male and female need to be treated equally, socially, politically, economically, right? Uh, Let us look at what are the objectives of feminism. It is to promote the recognition of the rights of women, uh, to achieve gender equality, eradicate the exploitation of women, challenge the patriarchal structures of Caribbean societies. So those are the objectives of feminism. Let us look at some of their impact. So one of the first impact of feminism on the Caribbean is the establishment of the rights of women. And through feminist groups that have been formed, Caribbean females have seen a lot of their a lot of rights. I wouldn't want to say restored because some of those rights they never had before, but a lot of rights being given to females, such as educational rights, labor rights, in terms of the females can get their maternity leave, voting rights, female could not vote, especially before 1944 in Jamaica. Uh, Pastoral right or clerical right. What do I mean by that? Rights to be pastors in church. Some churches today they don't allow female priests or they don't allow female pastors, but we have been seeing in the last 10 or 15 years where the world is moving in a right direction where you are seeing more female pastors taking over the churches. Um, and also, another is the demand for gender equality. So it's not only that rights are being established, but there's a demand. So what are some of the demands? That there should be equality, the same on companies board, like very large boards like Scotiabank. Right now, I believe Scotiabank has a female uh, CEO, right? I think he's a female CEO is at Scotiabank. But when you look at the composition of the board, it's majority males. If you look at the different boards in Jamaica, most of the companies boards are basically comprised of mostly males, and persons in feminists are saying that you need to have a 50-50 on the board. Same thing with politics. Over the years, majority of the persons in politics, they are male and less female in politics. In the last election, we have seen where for the Jamaica Labour Party, they would have uh, sent quite a lot of females as candidates for the lower house. And so at the end of the election, the you had way more females representative in politics, both from the opposition side and the government side in politics. Even when you look at the Senate, Peter Phillips, before he left, well, he's still in representation of party, before he left the presidency of the People's National Party, he would have implemented a 50-50 Senate, so 50% women, 50% men in the Senate. I think that is good. We are moving in the right direction. Equality when it comes to sports. Female sports are tend to, I think a student did an SBA last year. I think it is last year, or maybe 2 years ago. And she was she was an athlete, and she had the problem, I think she played football, and she said, uh, yeah, female sports don't get the same level of support as male in terms of sponsorship, public support, even support from fellow females, right? And so she had a serious problem with that as an athlete, and even the same value uh, when it comes to when it seems like a hurricane is coming. Look at hear the wind outside. Sports, the same thing with academia. If you look in academia, majority of the persons in academia are actually females. But when you look at the leadership of the university, most of the leadership male. Uh, and so you have to ask yourself the question: why is it harder for females to have administrative roles at the university? Why is it hard for females to have it harder to equality when it comes to sports? Same thing with politics and being on company on the different boards. Now, another impact of feminism is the lobbying for key laws. And so we have seen where labor law has been passed in most territories to protect females. And right now we have the sexual harassment legislation that protects females against sexual harassment. Although I know that sexual harassment is not only a female thing, it is also, males are also being sexually harassed. But majority of the cases that we know about are females being harassed sexually on the workplace. And so those key legislations have been passed as a result of the lobbying groups, the feminist groups in the Caribbean. Same thing with marital rape. So in the Caribbean, because of our patriarchal mentality, most of us feel that a husband cannot rape his or her wife, right? His wife, yes, his wife. And so, because of that, uh, there is a lot of challenge around that, especially in relationship. You could have a female who is with a male, they separate, they don't live in this, or they live in the same space, but they are not together. But the reason why they live together is maybe because of socioeconomic issues, or the male has, remember the or the female, our case that this would go. So in terms of the marital rape status, they are separated. They are not together for all different reasons, right? They live in two different rooms. They share the same house, but because they go to a church and the church said that they can't divorce, they remain together. The husband has his partner coming to visit. The female might not have a partner coming, but she might go to visit another partner, but they are married legally, but they are separated. And in the night, he might feel that he wants to have sexual intercourse with her. And he believes that because she is his wife legally, then he could go and have sexual intercourse with her. And so the law has recognized marital rape. And there's also in a female in a relationship that no, you don't want to have any form of sexual intercourse with somebody. She also has that right. So that because she's married means that she bound to have sexual intercourse with her husband. So feminism has contributed to laws, these laws that have changed the way in which we view marriage and also labor. Another is feminists in the Caribbean has lobbied for harsher punishment for domestic violence. And we have seen recently in Jamaica where a politician basically used a stool and basically abused a female. And I'm not talking about here that we need to talk about violence generally. No, that's not what we're talking about. That's a fallacy. It's an error in an argument. So when you're discussing a particular issue to point to say, oh, you need to look at that. Yes, we need to look at violence generally. And shockingly, this came from the Prime Minister's wife, who is a member of parliament, in covering up the domestic problem of a fellow JLP politician. She said that, listen, let us look at violence overall, because males are being abused also. Yes, I agree that males are being abused. But in the particular situation that we're looking at the fact that most of the domestic violence are really towards females. And if you have a member of parliament who use a stool to beat a woman you can imagine what he's doing out inside the house, and he's actually doing this outside in full view of the entire public. We are not saying that other politicians are not doing it, but the fact that we caught you, that means that you need to go and you need to resign. But what? He's still a member of parliament and he's still being paid from the government coffers. They don't care. And in September, the government of Jamaica, both the opposition and the government, said, oh, Jamaica is doing so well because we have a record number of female members of parliament. Oh, yes, it is good. But even with a record number of female parliamentarians, 7 months after, we have a case of domestic violence by a fellow member of parliament, and the member of parliament is still sitting there. Something is seriously wrong with this country and the level of hypocrisy that permeates this society. Another way in which feminism has contributed significantly to the Caribbean, right? Oh, yes. And that is true, Abigail, that there have been a progress when it comes to women prime ministers in the Caribbean. We have, for example, like Mia Mottley in Barbados, uh, Eugenia Charles, who was in Dominica, Kamala from Trinidad, Portia Simpson Miller here in Jamaica, and the Bermudas also had a female leader. And I believe that we have been doing very well in the Caribbean when it comes to women in leadership. In fact, the last general election in the Cayman Islands had a record number of females being elected in the Cayman Islands. And so I think that is something good. But the problem I have recently with the election in Cayman is that although they had a record number of females being elected, when you look at the composition of the cabinet, most of the positions went to males. So that's a serious problem there. They also empowerment through education. Feminists has contributed to the empowerment of females through education. They provide scholarship, mentorship program, especially to poorer girls. Education is a very important key to for independence of females, right? Very, very important. You have your money, nobody really can talk to you. And the thing is that right now, with how education is going in Jamaica and the Caribbean, in the next 15, 20 years, you're going to have way more females who will control the families in a very serious way. In fact, most of the females are going to, in the next 15, 20 years, because we already see that trend already, where most of the females are making way more money than their husbands, right? Serious thing. No, I don't have a problem with a female making or my wife making way more money than me. I don't have a problem with that. But you have some males who are very patriarchal and they believe that a female should not make way more money than them. No, these are societal issues. Now, if you meet up on a young man, because most of you 18, 17, 18 now, by the next 3, 4 years, you might be thinking about marriage after university. Yeah, so if you look at it 5 years from now, depends on your career path, you might decide that in university you meet a young man, and then you decide that you're going to get married. It's just a reality. That's how life set up. And you meet a young man, and once you need to ask yourself these questions, and you need to ask him these questions. What about if I make more money than you? And listen to his response, because that can also reveal a lot about his character and how we view females generally. And so these are very important questions for educated females. They need to ask themselves these questions and ask their persons who they are interested in dating these questions. And you don't throw it out just like that, but you ask it, one step at a time, you ask these questions. They don't want to spend a lifetime with somebody who is threatened because you're making way more money. Not saying it could be that the male is making way more money than you, but right now it seems as if in the society on a whole, there's a challenge. People really don't like independent females. They really don't like it. But these are some things that I don't know how we're going to deal with it, to be honest. Let us also look at impact of feminism. Not only we see that they empower women through education, they lobby for key laws, the demand for gender equality, we have the establishment of the rights of women. We have seen examples where a lot of non-governmental organization has been formed, like Code Red for Gender, Sistering in Jamaica, Belize Rural Women Association, Barbados, the National Organization of Women in Barbados, the Me Too movement across the United States, that we also have our own type of Me Too here in the Caribbean that try to expose sexual harassment and all of these different stuff. And Life in Leggings. Life in Leggings is a movement in Barbados. Another impact of feminism is the creation of the Institute of Gender Studies at UA in 1993 that really focused on gender issues. So one feminist is Udine Barto, and she has done significant amount of research. I think she's still a principal at UA, Kville. Yes, the first female principal at Kville campus. And she has done work on feminist theorizing gender and public sector, gender issues in higher education, the investigation of Caribbean political economy, theorizing heterosexual women socio-sexual unions, and educational leadership and change. Now, the UWI Gender Studies also allows students, both male and female, to do work on females, both at the from the undergraduate, the bachelor level, right up to the PhD. They promote feminist authors and they advocate for women's rights. So that's the impact on the Caribbean. We have also we had some of them have died, like Udina Mars, Una Marson, and Lucille Matthew Rain Mayer. Those persons died, yeah, I think, yeah. And so they are feminists in the Caribbean, very popular feminists. Marsha Haynes is an activist in Barbados. UD in Barbados, current principal at KV Camp. Rhoda Reddock, I believe she was deputy principal in Trinidad, UWI Trinidad, UWI St. Augustine, which is in Trinidad, and Patricia Mohammed, who I believe she is the author of one of your textbooks. These are some examples of Caribbean feminists, and the list is way longer than this. So that is Caribbean feminism. Any comments on Caribbean feminism before we move on? No comments. Move on. Indo-Caribbean thought. What do we mean by Indo-Caribbean thought? These are actually thought of that deals with the experiences of the East Indian people, not the indigenous people, East Indian. So you look at their cultural expression, their expressions, their oppression, because they have gone through oppression in the Caribbean. Their response to oppression and indentureship. A lot of issues going on here with people of East Indian descent. Through the advocacy of Indo-Caribbean thought, or persons who promote that thought, you find that there's a retention of their identity and culture. So they tend to retain it, cultural retention. There's a strong emphasis in the East Indian community on retention. You have the celebration of Indian Arrival Day right across the Caribbean, but they are not national holidays in other countries, but in Trinidad and Guyana, the Indian Arrival Day is a national holiday. That's also to preserve or to retain Indo-Caribbean thought in the Caribbean. The continuation of their religion, Hinduism and Islam, is also an evidence of this. The continuation in terms of their food, their music, their custom, their dress. And shockingly, we could look at this negatively, but they also reinforce endogammy, which is you're married within your own specific ethnic group. It could be that it is something that is bad for some, especially for the Chinese. They really don't encourage it. We have seen a way more where the Indians tend to go outside of their ethnic groups in the Caribbean, but the Chinese tend to still remain that way. But in some families in Trinidad and Guyana, also in Jamaica, they really don't encourage people to marry outside of their ethnic group. And so there's a lot of issues and debates surrounding that. But self-preservation. Well, I think it's ethnic preservation. Why people do it? They're fearful. They have also the establishment of Indian National Association. So in a lot of different territories in the Caribbean, you have Indian associations being established. What scholars on India thought, and these thoughts have been expressed not only through like textbooks, but also through poems and plays, uh, music. So you have like you thinker that wrote the book A New System of Slavery. There's Naipaul from Trinidad, Samuel Selvon. So these are some scholars that have promoted Indo-Caribbean thought. Uh, the next one is indigenous perspective. And so these are writings on the indigenous people, such as the Taínos, the Kalinagos, Garifuna, and the Mayans. And what are these writings? The purpose or objective of these writings. One is to dispel some of the myths that European placed on the indigenous people that still continues today, that they were helpless, that they were heathen, that they extinct, they don't exist. When I was growing up, going to school right up to Jamaica College, I had no clue that the Kalinagos, people of Kalinago descent, were still here in the Caribbean. I thought that they died. In fact, that was the notion that we were fed. But when I go to university, I realized that Kalinago people still exist here. You have Garifuna people exiting in Guatemala, Belize, that the Mayans still have settlements in descendants of Mayans, and they still practice Mayan tradition in Mexico and all of these places. And so it is really a false narrative to say that all of them, there was a genocide of the indigenous people. Even today in Jamaica, people are challenging the concept that the Taínos, there was a genocide of the Taínos, because people are coming up now. I don't know what truth it is. I don't know if historians is there to support it, but I really don't know. But people have been saying that the Taínos, people of Taino descent are still here in Jamaica. In fact, in Puerto Rico, there's a strong view in Puerto Rico that the Tainos, the legacies of the Tainos are still there, and that people are direct descendants of Tainos. And so the Tainos, just like the Garifunas in Belize, you also have the Tainos mixing with the different racial groups, the African and the white, which create this so-called new race that Puerto Rican, because some Puerto Rican don't consider themselves black, they see themselves as being racially mixed with Taino, Spanish, and African, right? So what are some other views, objectives of indigenous perspectives? So one is to dispel all of these rumors and lies and myths by European, to establish a correct historical account of the indigenous people, to highlight their cultural contributions to today's society, to establish indigenous organizations, to celebrate their culture. And in Belize, Guyana, and Dominica, indigenous people complain that they have been marginalized, right? And so as a result of that, it is to counteract all of these marginalization. And some of the authors, scholars that have looked at indigenous perspective or try to dispel these myths on the indigenous people are people like Lennox Honeychurch from Dominica, has done extensive work on the indigenous people in Dominica and the Eastern Caribbean, Sailor James Richard Hart and Hilary Beckles. All right, ladies, so this cover indigenous perspective. Look out for these in the paper one. They will come in the paper one. Caribbean feminism, Indo-Caribbean thought, and indigenous perspective. Any comments, ladies?
No, sir.
All right. So we see you tomorrow for face-to-face class. All right, ladies. Bye-bye.
Okay, sir. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.